Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Nice of you to drop by. So, today is going to actually be a day where I get to just monologue to you about world building, about a very specific city, or rather a triple set of cities, which is kind of one and kind of three, depending on who you ask and how you look at it. It is the triple city, the tri-city of Tenerife, on the continent of Retief, and of course no one cares about those names, although they do have meaning, to me at least. So, as I said last time, we are not going to just give you random world building ideas, we're actually going to show you how I incorporate a bunch of different random world building ideas into a specific, city, and so you actually have real concrete examples, instead of just, oh look, ideas, it's like, hey, here's an actual place that you can, draw inspiration from. Also, at the end of it, if we have time, if I don't ramble on too inordinately, I might actually do some real-time, well, it's not real-time because it's pre-recorded, but I might do some actual real-time more building of it, because it's not fully fleshed out as it ought to be, but, we'll see. So, in this city, Tenerife, which may or may not just refer to one of the cities, or to all three, or just the lower one, I'm really not sure, but anyway, that's what we're calling it for now. It is three cities up on a... Alright, so, you have ocean down here, right? And for a very good reason, the continent is, like, mostly, well, you actually don't know if it's mostly missing or not. The continent just rises straight up. Almost like a cookie cutter just, like, chunked out most of the rest of the continent and just left some there. And so you have this low water level, and it just rises up for, I don't know, a mile. I don't really know. I don't have a great visual, but it's like it rises up really high. And then, you have the rest of the continent up there. And so you go to the edge and you look down, and there's water way down below. It's like, this doesn't look natural. This isn't how continents naturally form. What's going on here? Yeah, it's very unnatural. Anyway, people have taken advantage of this. So that there is, at the corner, essentially, of this continent, there is it kind of slopes down, right? So you have the surface, and then it kind of like goes down a little bit, and there's like a little plateau, and then it goes down a little bit more to the water below, right? So they put three cities here. One at the top, at the surface, one midway on that mid-plateau, and one at the base. It's, the port city. And of course you can move between them. It's probably not a mile high, that's probably a lot. But anyway, it's pretty high. So, if you haven't watched any of my other videos about elements and magic and world building, that this may seem kind of odd to you, but I'm just gonna go with it, because this is my channel and I'll talk about my own world. So the main thing about this city, well, not main thing. Let's see. We'll just start with races. Humans are, of course, dominant in this era. This is the royal era of man in the continent of Tvegnal, which is like super far late in history, but in this certain continent, in this place, men have mostly settled here because all the other races have mysteriously disappeared. So yes, there are men and of course a few other races, but they all came from the man continent to the west. Anyway, that's information you don't need. I just can't help but exposit world building, can I? So you have the lower city itself, which imagine Port Royal from Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's kind of like this bowl. It kind of rises up toward the inland, and lower down you have the port. It looks kind of like that. So it's mostly run by the merfolk, who I call Merman, or Marin. And they run the whole, of course, the maritime operations, the ships and whatnot. They are also in charge of security in all the lower areas, because they are very good at hiding things, which is a quirk of water, ties to mystery. And so they protect their goods and their ships and their people and, the city itself from lower attack by using mystery magic, by hiding things and whatnot, obscuring things, all that sort of stuff. The mid-district, which is right in the middle of, like, the center of, like, the big old thick tall continent, it's right in the middle, so it's closest to Earth, right? So there are some dwarves who live here, sure, but also just Earth-adherent people. And this place, because it's tied to Earth and therefore third pillar, tied to status and therefore social interactions and all that, it has essentially the town square, and it has meeting places. This is where your city council members and governors live. This is the place where people meet. This is our city council area, right? And that is tied to, again, Earth, and therefore status, and all those schools of magic and all that. And then the very top one, highest up on the surface, touching the sky, is closest to air. And so therefore, it is the place where people travel from. It's where you have your merchants and your explorers and all the freedom stuff, freedom, power, status, and mystery. And so that's where people, travel from. They have all the roads and whatnot. So going from there, the royal era of man is like the 49th era or something. It's like super late in history. And so there have been, throughout history, a whole bunch of wars, a whole bunch of conflict. This world, this setting, 7,600 years of it, is absolutely chock full of just some of the worst conflicts ever. It's essentially an analogy of like my own home life and family and how there was so much conflict all the time. I was like, I unwittingly just made a world that was about constant conflict for sometimes good reasons, sometimes not so good reasons. And so when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, it's just family. That makes sense. Anyway, there are conflicts everywhere in this world all the time. It's wonderful. I love it. So the people in this city, they have some elves, which is a big thing, the fact that they tolerate elves at all. Because they have, of course, the merfolk down in the water. They have a couple of dwarves, probably mostly hill dwarves. And, of course, humans, a whole bunch of humans. Now, what they're trying to do is attract as many people as they can to this city to interbreed, to crossbreed, because they think if so many wars were fought largely between major racial groups. And they're like, okay, if we just get rid of the concept of races, we'll stop having wars, right? Which, by the way, is a pretty legitimate hypothesis for this world, because the elves and humans have been at each other's throats for a while, and there's so many other races that have so many resentments that they built up over the years, especially the most recent war, which was like everyone had a pocket nuke, essentially, and they were trying to blow each other up, and the world did literally get blown up. And so, now that there's... Okay, technically this continent is a chunk of rock floating through space currently. And so they're like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't blow up what we have currently. Maybe we should try to solve this problem before it escalates further, right? And so, don't worry. Like when the world first started, it was a regular planet. It's only later in history that it gets blown up. And yes, you get to play on them and take your space, it's not airships, it's not spaceships, it's like astral ships. You get to fly them through and dock to each one. And sometimes the different, I call them carvations because it's like part of the planet that was carved out. The different carvations, which are just continents, they float around. Sometimes they touch and meet and form temporary supercontinents, and sometimes they have enough gravity that they kind of fold and form like a little moon. So what was once one big planet is now like 3 different moons, and then they like touch each other and kind of like break up and move around. It's all called the waving world because it just waves in space all the time. Anyway, they decide let's stop the potential for further absolute maniacal destruction while we wait for someone to fix the world, right? Because it's a fantasy world. Of course you can put the planet back together, which may or may not be the events that the players undertake in the Ancients campaign that I originally intended 3.5 years ago that no one has actually done yet. Fixing the world and putting it back together. But anyway, they're like, let's solve problems in the meantime, no more wars, right? Let's not annihilate ourselves. It takes me forever to get back to this because there's so many tangents. So they say, what's a great way to do that? Well, we're not going to do genocide and kill off all the races except one. Let's combine all the races so that there is so much homogeny that we're all essentially one big race. You can't have a racial disagreement with another race if you can't really tell what race they are, and we're all kind of the same hodgepodge, right? So they decide, let's start doing that. Let's get all the different races that we can, and we'll all interbreed. Humans are very essential to this because humans are the only ones who can actually interbreed with all the other races. And so yeah, that's their big thing. Combine everything so we can all be friends and play nice. Interesting concept. What do you think about that concept? Is that misguided? Is that a terrible idea? Is that a good idea? Is it entirely reasonable? It really can be, especially when you know more about the world. It's like, you know what? After everything that's happened, you might as well give that a shot because we're at the end of days and we're all going to die soon if someone doesn't fix something. Anyway, a second thing they do is they say, all right, let's take all the elemental adherents. Okay, so just a quick refresher. In my world, everyone has some kind of, in some layers of the world, it's an organ in the body. In other layers, it's just like Ethereum in your veins, and it varies per race and all that. But anyway, everyone has what's essentially undefined matter in their body, undefined element, where it's in its ethereal state, and that Ethereum can solidify and turn into a specific element: earth, water, air, fire. So humans have 4 of these, 4 what I call body share. It's like 4 different, pieces of Ethereum within them, and they have 4 different, sections, 4 different pieces that they can turn into different elements, right? And that process is called adherence. You adhere your body to an element, and you take it inside you. And so now, boom, you have become, you have devoted, you have assigned one of those body share to adherence, to fire in this case, whatever. So, and then of course that gives you powers and abilities and whatnot, because all the elements have their own magic and their own power. It's elemental magic, it's Tetrarch stuff. As I mentioned previously, water has obscurement and invisibility. It's everything that has to do with mystery. Air has everything that has to do with freedom. Fire has everything that has to do with power, and earth has everything that has to do with status. Your relationships with people. And so, anyway, the people in this place realize that all of the elemental races, which are called kin, they're like a dwarf is made of 1/3 earth, just already automatically by himself, right? Okay, so many tangents. Humans are the perfect mixture of earth, water, air, and fire. They have all 4 elements in them, right? A dwarf is essentially human with extra earth. A Mora, which is my fantasy fire race, they are essentially human with extra fire, right? Merfolk are humanoid, with extra water. And the Shuvu, the avian birdfolk, they are essentially human. They're humanoid and whatnot. They can walk around and talk with extra air, and it gives them feathers and whatnot. When you have this, extra element from birth, you develop a certain way. A dwarf is short and whatnot. If you're born with a perfect mixture like a human, and you go out in the world and you get enough earth that you now have as much earth as the dwarf did, you're not going to turn into a dwarf, because the dwarf had that from birth. They developed that way, right? You got it afterwards. So you're not going to turn into a dwarf, even though you may have the same powers and abilities that a dwarf does, because you became adherent to earth just as much as they are, right? If not more, which you can do more, which is when you turn into an Elmani, which is essentially my version of a Genasi, but just cooler, because there's so many more things you can do with it. Anyway, all that to say, if your elemental races and adherence, elemental adherence is very important to a lot of people, right? Especially to certain races who are like born with adherence. It's like, yeah, my adherence is very important to me. That's like literally 1/3 of my flesh. That means that this city, Teneric, said, all right, we want to blend all the races, but a big part of that is blending all the elements. You have to be able to blend all the elements, otherwise you can't really blend all the races, right? And so even for humans, who may not be necessarily adherent to one or the other element, we need to blend all the elements. So they actually have they fund expeditions, which the party can go on, the adventurers can go on, to go out and find the arches in the world, because they're these big, old, ancient dragon arches, which kind of like look like dragons. They have like draconic shapes and faces and like wings and whatnot, although it's like stone and whatnot. Actually, there are different arches for different elements: water arch, earth arch. Anyway, they send people to go out there and find them. And when you go to one of these ancient arches, you can touch it or walk beneath it and gain adherence to the appropriate element. Like an earth arch would give you adherence to the earth element, right? And so they send people to go out and find all the different arches, map where all of them are, and fund pilgrimages essentially to these arches, and take big groups of people with them, so everyone can become adherent to each element through these arches. So that when you become adherent to all 4 elements, boom, you're perfectly balanced, right? You can't have conflict between the elements if you have all the elements, right? And there's a certain consequence of getting adherence to all the elements, which none of my players have tried yet, but one of my players in my Saturday game is like, I want to try it. And I'm like, ooh, you do? They might be the first one to actually figure out what becoming adherent to all the elements gives you. Super cool. So that's the second main thing they're doing. They say, we want all the interbreeding. We want everyone to be this one big non-specific race, and then we want everyone to get their adherence, right? And then, on top of that, there's a third one, but I forget the third one. I guess we'll go to the fourth. So, elves, okay? Quick rundown. Man, this video is going to take forever. The elves themselves, there's so many different types of elves. So, I'm going to give like world creation lore and whatnot in a different video. For now, we'll just assume that you watched the other video first and you're here, right? That's what we'll just assume. So, the high elves, who, for reasons I don't know yet, probably because I haven't listened to enough music yet, who aren't withering, they're just regular, somehow stable high elves for some reason, don't know why, yet. They take their dream substance. So dream substance is essentially, like you call it dream powder, dream liquid, dream water, whatever. Like it takes different forms, which are similar to each element, like a solid, liquid, gas, and something else, like a flame and energy, whatever. They take these, and instead of using it themselves too much, because that's been looked down upon in the past, they give it to humans, and they say, "Hey, humans, we want you to." I mean, it's not them wanting. The humans are pretty much in charge here. But like the reason why the elves are allowed to stay is because elves can produce and harvest this dream substance, and so they keep the elves around and they give it to humans and let the humans go on these like dream trips so that they can primarily interact with what they assume to be a dream plane, which is directly above them. In my world, there is you have Ethereum, like the ethereal plane, it's all gray and wispy and whatnot, and then you have the stars, and that's thoughts. The stars are the gateway to the plane of thought. The plane of thought is behind the stars. It's technically not physical. You enter it by thinking about it, so now your thoughts are in the plane of thought. Only thoughts can exist in the plane of thought. It's not a physical place you can go. But the plane of thought kind of manifests through the stars into our world, right? The stars, like starlight itself, is thought. It is information, knowledge, memory. There are lots of different types of thoughts. So when Ethereum, which is just the raw matter of creation, not really matter yet, it's just raw potential, is shown upon by starlight, they mix and essentially create dream. So there is currently a big, they mix and create this kind of, instead of gray, it's like colored. It has colors like the colored with the light of the stars, and so it's this gray wispy stuff that's colored now, and it essentially looks like an aurora or like a nebula, and it's prismatic or rainbow colored. It has it has various colors based on what sorts of thoughts, what sorts of stars shown on it, what sorts of thoughts are in it, and so that's actually a physical place. The dream plane, or at least it was for a while, the dream plane is this big aurora nebula thing in the sky in a certain part of the world, and some people like take that dream stuff and harvest it and whatnot. So there's currently a new one over this continent. It's just sitting there, and it's mostly golden, which is interesting to the people there. And so this golden aurora, it's like, hey, this is a new dream plane. We haven't had a dream plane in thousands of years. There's a new one here suddenly on this empty continent. Let's go find out what this is. So in order to actually reach it and access it, they get the elves to give them dream substance. So they like go on this dream trip, and they essentially dream in that dream plane, and they're studying it and trying to figure out what's going on. And sometimes they try to like pull dream matter back, because dream matter is like, Ethereum is the most powerful substance in the world because it could be anything and everything. Ethereum can turn into any element, any matter, anything, spells, knowledge, information. Ethereum can turn into anything. And so if you have raw Ethereum, that's wonderful, right? But most people can't use Ethereum. If you get Dream, then it's Ethereum that has been put into a certain package, so it can't be anything anymore, but it can be anything you can dream of. Well, that's still very versatile, right? It's also like pre-charged. It's pre-packaged. So you can use Dream Ethereum, just dream stuff, dream substance, a lot more easily than you can use actual Ethereum, right? Using raw Ethereum is kind of a high-level thing. That's what the Numinous class does. They usually use the Ethereum within people, which is their soul, and so they like puppet people's souls or like soul trap them and turn them into spells, all that stuff. That's a different class. But so these people do this dream trip into the dream plane and, pull power back and whatnot, and they are trying to, use this dream substance to better their lives and all sorts of things. So, yeah, there's something about adherences and the adherent temples that I don't remember, and I guess this is the part of the video where I start actually building it out, but I don't think I have time for that. The video's already 20 minutes long, so I'm going to end it there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for sticking to the end, which is probably like 2 of you, but it's still wonderful. And I will talk to y'all later. God bless. If you have any questions about world building or whatnot, we have a Discord server. Leave them in the comments. Leave them in Discord. And yeah, have a good day.